very disheartening to see all the cases of police brutality.
Too many of our people have died.
From which no guys strive. Our culture on display.
The Black Lives Matter protests have now spread all across the world, and people in large numbers are taking to streets to protest against racial discrimination. In the US, protesters returned to the streets demanding police reforms. In New York, protesters took part in a march against racism and police violence. In a rally between Washington Square in Manhattan and New York's Foley Square, hundreds of demonstrators chanted pro-African American slogans and held up anti-racism placards demanding justice for George Floyd. The protesters also criticized the statues of controversial men like Christopher Columbus, who are considered genocidal figures for the indigenous Indians. In Washington, D.C., protesters and anti-racism activists gathered peacefully near the White House, carrying placards and shouting slogans against police injustice. The protesters also held a march towards the Black Lives Matter Plaza, a street near the White House that has been painted with a mural reading Black Lives Matter. Since the protests have been peaceful so far, security fencing on the east side of the White House has also been reduced. Protesters in California's financial center, San Francisco, created a mural that spells out Black Lives Matter. The mural on the road leading to San Francisco City Hall was painted by a group of community organizers who were inspired by the ongoing protests. Health experts believe that these protests, which are taking place in the middle of a pandemic, could lead to a surge in infections as social distancing norms are being blatantly violated. However, this time protesters in Minneapolis wore protective masks. The protesters also held placards and demanded justice for George Floyd and his family.
We will not stand for unjustified behavior.
Workers of the state capitol building in Kentucky's Lexington removed the statue of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. With the Black Lives Matter protests intensifying, the call for the removal of statues and bringing down monuments which symbolize racial discrimination is also increasing. Earlier, a state historical commission had also agreed to remove the statue of Jefferson Davis as he stood against the very ethos of democracy in the U.S.